Hello, this is Alan again, continuing my short series of videos on the ECL built-in function ROLLUP. It's the enterprise control language, and I've already done a video on one form of ROLLUP, and there's a second form of ROLLUP which is this follow-up video. So I'm going to do exactly the same as I did before and use exactly the same inputs and generate more or less the same outputs. Just a reminder, if you haven't seen the first video, ROLLUP is effectively a deduplicate on some condition, but not just deduplicating, but preserving information from one record to the next between iterations while deduping. So in this example here, my input is a load of records with duplicate surnames. I want to wrap that down effectively to one surname, but just maintain a list of names, forenames, for that single surname here. Right, and let's show you what the ECL reference manual has to say about it all. So on this particular video, I'm going to concentrate on this third variant of the ROLLUP function here, which behaves differently to the other two here. Right, so without further ado, let's get on with the workings and just walk through this. Okay, so the first point to note is that the input data has to be grouped. There's just a built-in group that allows you to group by some certain criteria here. So in my example, I will have grouped by surname, and on the first iteration, the selected items are moved down, presented to a transform. Now this time the right hand side is effectively, or the rows left is a data set of that record type, and the first record of that data set is presented as the left hand side. So here the entire Ashdown group of data is presented in one go to the ROLLUP transform. So I wanted to, I've put a 2 here, so I've put a count in to the list of forenames, because I wanted to show that the output from, unlike the other variants of ROLLUP, this particular variant of ROLLUP, the output formats can be different from the input formats, because you're never representing anything, you're never iterating on an output. So the output always, just from the transform, always goes to the output in this case. So it can be a different format, so different record layout to the inputs. So then let's move on to the second iteration. Now again, in the previous variant of the ROLLUP, because it's just a single unique entry for this group, it just gets passed straight to output. But in this case, this variant, even though it's a single entry, it still gets processed through ROLLUP, the ROLLUP transform, where the data set is just contains just a single row, which is a copy of the left hand side. So again, I've worked through my transform, and again this goes straight to the output. And the final example I've got, this is again the Isabel, the first record, will go through to the left hand side, and the entire data set will be presented on the right hand side here, rows left. Again, I've generated that, and that is that. So I'll show you the ECL used to perform that function there. Again, exactly the same data set that we've seen in the PowerPoint presentation. This time we have to group it, and you have to sort first. You basically group on a sorted set. So we're grouping on surname, but it could be more than one field here. You don't have to group on a single field. And in fact, if you don't specify, if you don't do a group, if I just pass an ungrouped data set to this ROLLUP and tried submitting it, it would fail with eventually. And input activity must be grouped, so I must apply a grouped record to this ROLLUP. Now this form of ROLLUP is distinguished by the second parameter being the word group, And so you supply the input data set, which is grouped, you give the special keyword group, and then you supply the transform. And then this time, instead of the right hand side, there's rows left, which is an indicator to the compiler that you're basically expecting a data set to be passed on the left hand side, as I've put right here. So this transform can have a different output to the output format to the input. So I've just put a count of names just to show some difference in the output. And the transform, as I said here, takes a data set of the input records site. So what am I doing here? Well, I'm trying to do exactly the same as I did in my previous video, produce exactly the same result. So I'm just concatenating from R, which is a data set now. I'm just concatenating the names field from R with a comma separator, and that's a function macro that just works on any old data set and any old field in there. So this is my count of R. So my count names just counts the size of the number of records, the data set, the number of records that have been presented on the right hand side here, and surname is just surname. That can come from either the left or right, really. So let's see what this does. Submit this. We should get the same as we found it. Yes, in your PowerPoint production, I didn't bother with separating out count names. I just appended it to the end of here. But really, you can see it's exactly as we saw in the PowerPoint presentation. What things to suggest? Right, just to prove to you that everything goes through the transform in this case, let's just do an X plus here. And let's just rerun this with a bit of an experiment and see what goes on. Right, so XXX, so it's gone through the transform just once. And notice with this single record Baker in the previous variant, that wasn't presented to transform, but in this variant, Baker is still processed by the transform function. What else to say? Counter is irrelevant in all forms of roll-up, really. So if you put in something like counter and put in something like unsigned C here, try to use that. Oh, counter is not valid in this context, so there you are. I don't think there's that much more I can think of to say about this other variant of roll-up. Just there's no point putting local in this format. The other thing to say is implicitly local. The grouping here would have already made would have already distributed and made sure that this is local. So this is implicitly run locally on each node here. You don't actually have to specify local here as a parameter to roll up in this form. I think that's about it. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, bye.